Whispers on the Ridge. Mia Carter tightened the straps of her backpack one final time, then wiped her clammy palms against the rough fabric of her cargo pants. Above her, the vast evergreens of the Pacific Northwest whispered in the cold breeze. They bent slightly, branches creaking like old bones. The ridge trail was remote, barely touched by hikers even during peak seasons, and she had fought hard to be given permission to lead this small group through it. This was supposed to be her turning point, her proof. Instead, unease squatted heavy in her gut. Not fear exactly, not yet, but the prickling certainty that something was off. The way the clouds hung too low, the silence between bird calls, the fact that Liam, the loudmouthed hiker who doubted her from the start, seemed especially smirky this morning. "You sure you know the way, Carter?" he asked, slinging his pack up with an audible grunt. She forced a smile, pushing past the urge to snap. Calm leaders win loyalty. "I know this trail like the back of my hand," she said. "Let's move out." Behind her, the others fell into line. 4 more hikers who had paid for the experience of isolation and raw nature. They had no idea what isolation truly meant. Not yet. The ridge devoured them within minutes. Trees soared hundreds of feet into the sky, cutting out most of the morning light. The forest floor was a quilt of ferns, moss, and rotted wood. Mia kept the pace steady, checking her compass and GPS every 15 minutes, even though the trail was faintly marked with small colored flags nailed into trees decades ago. The group was good-natured at first. 2 couples, Mark and Sandra, Eddie and Jules, shared quiet laughter, pointing out strange mushrooms or old-growth trees with curious scars. Even Liam held his tongue, save for the occasional grunt of exertion. The ridge trail was no joke. 7 days of uneven terrain, crumbling paths, sudden elevation changes, and occasional river crossings. But that first night at Camp 1, it felt almost perfect. The campfire crackled as Mia handed around ration packs and filtered water. The smell of wood smoke curled warmly in the cool dusk. Mia sat slightly apart, staring into the flickering flames, telling herself she had imagined the wrongness earlier. Still, the woods were oppressively silent. No hooting owls, no rustling critters. Only the faint, constant creak of trees swaying, like an ancient language whispered just beyond hearing. When she finally crawled into her tent, she lay awake long after the others' breathing deepened, watching the shadows crawl across the thin nylon walls. Listening, the world outside her tent felt raw and brittle when she unzipped the flap at dawn. Frost glittered on fallen leaves. A hush blanketed everything. Liam was already up, crouched near the fire ring, staring intently at the ground. "What is it?" Mia asked, slinging her pack over her shoulders. He pointed without looking up. Between the tents, clear as if pressed into wet cement, were footprints. Boot prints, but wrong. Too deep, narrow, as though whoever left them had dragged themselves forward. Mia knelt, examining the prints. They circled their camp, once, twice, then disappeared into the undergrowth. No other trail in, no trail out. "I counted 6 sets of boots when we checked in," Liam said, voice low. "This makes 7. Her mind raced for rational explanations. Another hiker lost and wandering maybe. A prank. An animal somehow. But she knew better. Deep down, in the marrow of her bones, Mia recognized the chilling familiarity of a predator's pattern. Watching. Waiting. "Pack up," she ordered, standing. Double time. No one argued. Something in her tone, or perhaps something in the air, made even Liam snap his mouth shut. The trail grew meaner as they ascended. Roots clawed at their boots. Mud sucked at their ankles. Cold mist slithered between trees, stealing warmth from their bones. Tensions ran high. Every misplaced twig snap sent heads whipping around. Every gust of wind whispering through branches seemed to carry words too faint to catch. "You should have turned us back," Liam muttered once, after slipping on a mossy rock and nearly tumbling down a slope. Mia ignored him, but the others heard. Small doubts grew like mold, invisible at first, then all-consuming. That night at Camp 2, a narrow clearing barely big enough for their tents, the group sat in uneasy silence. No jokes, no casual chatter. They'd all seen the same thing. Flash of a figure between the trees, a shape that shouldn't have been there. Breathing when no one was breathing. At midnight, Mia found herself sitting with Liam and Jules, whispering. "We leave now," Liam urged. "Bushwhack straight down the ridge. No more trail. No more waiting to die." "Night travel is suicide," Mia said, barely audible. "The trail's a death trap. You know it." Mia fought the storm inside her. She could order them to stay, or she could watch them fracture completely. In the end, she gave no orders. Half the group, Liam, Jules, and Eddie, shouldered packs and vanished into the mist, ignoring her warning about broken ground and hidden ravines. Mia, Sandra, and Mark stayed, pressing closer to the fire, listening to the forest breathe. It began subtly, a tap, tap, tap sound from the trees. Soft at first, like a stick against bark, then louder, closer, almost rhythmic. Mark clutched a rock in both hands, his knuckles white. Sandra wept silently, hands over her mouth. Mia sat frozen, staring into the darkness, refusing to look away. Something moved just beyond the firelight. A tall, thin figure half shrouded in mist. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to fight, to collapse, sobbing into the dirt. Instead, she did nothing. She let the fear wash over her, through her. The tapping faded. Dawn crept slowly, agonizingly through the canopy. When the first birds finally sang again, Mia exhaled, a slow, shuddering breath that tasted like blood and pine sap. They had survived the night. At daybreak, Mia made a decision. They couldn't go back, couldn't wait for rescue. They had to finish the trail. Packs heavy, throats raw with thirst and fear, they pushed on. The mist thinned, revealing a crumbling ridge line. The old trail markers were barely visible now, weathered rags clinging to skeletal branches. And there, at the edge of a clearing, Mia found it. A hollow in the earth. 2 sets of prints. Massive, misshapen, each step sinking deep as if under an enormous weight. In the center, a cracked compass. Liam's. Mia knelt, hand trembling as she reached out. A sudden coldness wrapped her wrist, like a breath or a whisper brushing against her skin. She jerked back. "This place is not yours." The words hissed directly into her ear. Yet no one was there. No wind, no sound. Only the patient, towering trees watching. She staggered back to Sandra and Mark, heart hammering against her ribs. They said nothing. They had heard it too. The forest thinned. Rocks turned to gravel. Gravel turned to dirt road. A miracle. The service road, abandoned decades ago, still led downhill. At the bottom, A ranger truck, battered but real, blinked in the late afternoon sun. Safety. Survival. When they climbed inside, the world felt too bright, too fast. The ranger looked them over, concern flickering in his lined face. "You're lucky you found this old road," he said, scanning the battered GPS Mia handed him. "Folks who stray up the ridge, well, not all of them come back." Mia nodded mutely, staring out the window at the woods retreating behind them. Weeks passed. The media frenzy was relentless. Mysterious disappearances on Ridge Trail. Unexplained wilderness phenomena. Of the missing splinter group, only Eddie was found, delirious, hypothermic, muttering nonsense about shapes in the trees and the watchers with no faces. Liam and Jules vanished without a trace. Mia refused interviews, refused to rejoin wilderness tours, refused to ever step off pavement again. But sometimes, driving coastal roads at sunset, she saw the woods rise up, black against the burning sky. And sometimes, just sometimes, she thought she saw a figure at the tree line, tall, still, waiting. And in the quiet hum of her tires, she would swear she heard it again.